Hi everyone, this is Helloangel.design. Today we are going to make a very beautiful dress, step-by-step tutorial. This dress is a sleeveless dress with a bow at the side of the dress, and it has an elastic shoulder like this. I'm going to show you how to adjust your pattern paper, and the center back has a snap closure. You can make yours a snap closure or buttonhole. Please follow us on all social media platforms at Helloangel.design, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Helloangel.design. When we post video, please continue to watch and like this video. Share this video to your friends and loved ones, and let's jump right to this tutorial. First thing that you have to do, you grab your basic pattern paper. This is my front and back basic pattern paper. If you don't know how to make a basic pattern paper, I'll put the link on my description box below so that you can go and watch the video. I have my ruler here, my pencil, my armhole cuff, my eraser, and you also have your measuring tape. What I'm going to do, I am going to separate my back pattern paper. I'm going to adjust the front pattern paper first. What you are going to do, you pick your measuring tape or your ruler, place it at the shoulder seam of your pattern paper like this, fold it into two. You just take your marker or your pencil, you mark the center point of the shoulder seam. What you are going to do, from this center point, you measure down 2 centimeters. This is my 2 centimeters. If you're using inches, you can measure 0.75 inch. And you come down to this other side, place your measuring tape at the center point of the shoulder seam, measure down 2 centimeters. So this is my 2 centimeters. Once you have taken that measurement, the next thing that you have to do, you are going to connect from here to the neckline, and you also connect from here to the armhole. Place your armhole cuff like this, you connect it down, and then you also come down to the armhole side, you place your armhole like this, and you connect the armhole together. I have connected to the neckline, and I've also connected to the armhole. The next thing that you have to do, you pick your measuring tape or your ruler, place it at the shoulder seam like this. You measure down 2 centimeters like this. Once you take that measurement, take your ruler, connect it together. I have connected together. The next thing that you have to do, you can either add your seam allowance on your pattern paper, or you can add your seam allowance when you are cutting out your fabric. So what I'm going to do, I will take my scissors and then cut it out. I have cut out my front pattern. This is how it is, and this is the 2 centimeters that we measure, or 0.75 inch if you're using inches. And I have not add seam allowance yet on my pattern paper. When I'm cutting out my fabric, I will add seam allowance. So what I'm going to do, I'll put the front pattern paper aside, and let's adjust the back pattern paper. This is my back pattern paper. First thing that you have to do, you are going to place your measuring tape at the shoulder seam, just the same way we adjust the shoulder seam of the front pattern. Place your measuring tape, fold it into two like this, and you take your pencil or your marker, mark the center point of your shoulder seam pattern paper. Once you have done that, from this center point, measure down 2 centimeters or 0.75 inch. From this center point, measure down to the armhole side 2 centimeters or 0.75 inch. So I will place my measuring tape like this. This is my 2 centimeters is right here, and I'll come down to this other side. I will repeat the same process. I have taken my measurement. The next thing that you have to do, take your armhole curve, connect it down to the neckline, and also use the same armhole curve, connect it down to the armhole. I have connected down to the neckline and to the armhole. The next thing that you have to do, you place your measuring tape at the shoulder seam like this. You measure down 2 centimeters as well. Once you take that measurement, the next thing that you have to do, place your ruler and connect it down. I have connected down. This is how it is. Before we cut out our pattern paper, what you are going to do, from the center back, add your seam allowance or your button closure or snap closure. So I'm going to pick my measuring tape like this. From the center back, I'm going to add 3 centimeters at the center back of my pattern paper. This will be my button closure or snap closure. Once I have taken that measurement, the next thing that I'm going to do, I will pick my ruler and I will connect it to together like this. I have cut out the front and the back pattern paper. This is how it is. What I'm going to do, I'm going to place it on my fabric and cut it out. This is my fabric. I'm using this beautiful fabric. It's a cotton fabric. You can use any fabric of your choice. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to place my pattern paper on my fabric and cut it out. I have pinned my back pattern paper on my fabric, and I've also added my 1 centimeter seam allowance at the side seam, armhole, shoulder and neckline. The next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to take my scissors and cut it out. I have pinned my front pattern paper on my fabric. This is how it is. And I've also added seam allowance at the neckline, shoulder, armhole and side seam. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my scissors and I will cut it out. Remember to also cut out your lining the same way you cut out your made fabric. The next thing that we have to do, we are going to cut our little strap on the shoulder seam. So what you are going to do, you fold your fabric into two and you pick your measuring tape or your ruler. Our measurement was 4 centimeters, but I'm going to add 3 centimeters to that because I'm going to add elastic at the shoulder seam. So you add 3 centimeters to that plus 1 centimeter for stitching it at the top and 1 centimeter for stitching it at the bottom. That will be total 9 centimeters. So I place my measuring tape like this and I will measure that 9 centimeters right here, and you come down again and you measure that 9 centimeters. Once you have take that measurement, take your ruler and connect it together just the way I'm doing right now. Once you have connected together, the next thing that you have to do is to take the width of your strap that you are going to attach on the shoulder seam. So the measurement that we have was 4 centimeters plus 1 centimeter for stitching it together. That will be our seam allowance. That is 5 centimeters. Place your measuring tape, you measure down 5 centimeters, and then you come down to this other side, measure down 5 centimeters. Once you have take that measurement, place your ruler like this and connect the mark together. So I will just go ahead and connect it together like this. Once I have connected together, I will just put a little pin to secure the both fabric together so that it's not moving around. I have secured it together. I will take my scissors and I will cut it out. First thing that you have to do, you open your front top dress. This is the front of my top dress, and you pick the back pieces. You are going to put the both side seam together like this. Put the both side seam of your top dress together. Take it to your sewing machine and stitch the side seam together. And you also pick your lining. I'm using the same fabric to lining my top dress. Put the both side seam together and stitch it together. My seam allowance is 1 centimeter. Once you have done that, you take your skirt. When you are cutting out your skirt, make sure that you put your front skirt on fold and your back skirt on fold when cutting them out. So this is my back skirt, and I will pick my front skirt. I'm going to put the both sides seam together like this. I'll put them together like this. I will top stitch with my seam allowance. My seam allowance is 1 centimeter, and I will come down to this other side, put the side seam together and run a straight stitch. My seam allowance is 1 centimeter. Once you have done that, take it to your overlocker, overlock the both side seam raw edges. Top stitch the both side seam of my top dress. This is how it is. I repeat the same process with the lining. I take it to my ironing board, I press the seam apart. The next thing that we have to do, we are going to put the both front fabric together like this. Before you do that, take your top dress center back to your ironing board, iron interfacing at the center back. The width of my interfacing is 3 centimeters. Once you have iron interfacing on your center back of your top dress, put them together like this. We are going to top stitch. Take your top dress to your sewing machine, stitch around the center back, the armhole, neckline, armhole and center back. Do not stitch the shoulder yet. Once you have stitched that together, you take your strap, put them together like this. Make sure that both front fabric are facing each other. Run a straight stitch all the way down, and you pick the second strap, run a straight stitch all the way down. My seam allowance is 1 centimeter. Once you have done stitching, turn it inside out, take it to an ironing board and give it a go. have stitched my top dress together. This is how it is. I haven't turned it inside out yet. The next thing that we have to do, we are going to stitch our strap. I take my strap to my ironing board. I iron it very nice. I make sure that the seam is in between the fabric. What you are going to do, you are going to cut out your elastic. I will place my measuring tape like this. The measurement that I have for my elastic is about 5 centimeters. If you're using inches, you can measure 2 inches. So what you are going to do, you place your elastic inside the strap like this, and you take it to your sewing machine and run a straight stitch to secure the elastic together. Once you have done that, then you pull your fabric like this, pin them together and run a straight stitch. Once you have done that, also repeat the same process with the second strap. The next thing that we have to do, we are going to take a measurement at the center back of our skirt. So to do that, you place your measuring tape at the center back of your skirt. I'm going to take a measurement about 8 centimeters. If you're using inches, you can measure 3.25 inch. Once you have done that, take your scissors and cut it down to that 8 centimeter or 3.25 inch. I have cut it out. This is how it is. The next thing that you have to do, you have to cut a piece of fabric. This will be your placket at the center back. When you are taking your measurement, make sure you fold your fabric into two and take a measurement of about 3 centimeters. Once you take that measurement, make sure you cut a long piece of fabric to be able to go around the center back of your skirt. So what you are going to do, you place it like this at the center back of your skirt, and you are going to pin it all around the center back. I have pinned my placket at the center back of my skirt. This is how it is. What I'm going to do, I will take it to my sewing machine and run a straight stitch all the way down. Once I am done doing that, I will trim a little bit out from the seam allowance. I will fold inside 1 centimeter. I will use it to cover the placket all over again and run a straight stitch for the second. I have top stitched the strap together. This is how it is. Once you have done that, the next thing that we have to do, we are going to place it on the shoulder seam of our top dress. And I've also stitched my placket together. This is how it is once you have stitched your placket together. And I used the opportunity to run a gather stitch thread at the top edge of my skirt. So what we are going to do, we are going to place our strap at the shoulder seam of our top dress. So I'm going to show you guys gradually how to place it on your shoulder seam. So I will put one aside. This is the center of our shoulder seam. That is where we stitch the fabric together. I'm going to make sure that this will be facing the lining. So the way the center is, you just open your top dress like this. You pass it through the shoulder seam. So pass it through the shoulder seam like this. Take your pin to secure the shoulder seam together like this. Once you have done securing together, take it to your sewing machine and run a straight stitch all the way down. My seam allowance is 1 centimeter, and then you come down to this other side. This is the center back. You can see the way it is, and I will open my top dress like this, and I will pass it through the shoulder seam of my top dress. Once I am done with that, and I will take my pin to secure the both fabric together. Once I have done securing the both fabric together, I will take it to my sewing machine and run a straight stitch all the way down. My seam allowance is 1 centimeter. Go ahead and stitch that together. Then I will show you again how to place it at the of your shoulder seam and top stitch for the second time. I have top stitch. This is how it is. The next thing that you have to do, place your hand inside and you just turn it like this. Do not twist the strap. Just place it the way it is and pass it through the front shoulder seam like this. And then you put your hand on the shoulder seam of the front top dress. You pull it out on this other side. See the way it is. Once you have done that, take your pin to secure that together. You come down to this other side, open your top dress, pick your strap like this. Do not twist it, just push the fabric aside, and then you come down to the front shoulder and pass it through the front shoulder seam. Once you have passed it through the front shoulder seam, the next thing that you have to do, take your pin to secure them together. Once you have done that, take it to your sewing machine and run a straight stitch all the way down. My seam allowance is 1 centimeter. I had top stitch it together. This is how it is. I take my scissors to trim a little bit out from from the seam allowance. This is how it look. Once you have done that, all you have to do is to pull your top dress out like this. It's very easy and simple. You pull your top dress out like this and take it to your ironing board and give it a nice good press. The next thing that we have to do, we are going to gather our skirt at the waistline of our top dress. Go ahead and gather your skirt all around. Once you have done gathering your skirt, take it to your sewing machine and top stitch my seam allowance 1.3 centimeter or half an inch. Once you have done stitching, remove the gather stitch thread, take it to your overlocker, overlock the row. I have top stitched my skirt at the waistline of my top dress. This is how it is. I take it to my overlock. I just overlock all the raw edges. Once you have done that, the seam allowance that you use to stitch your skirt, you fold the same seam allowance on your top dress. You use it to cover the raw edges. So what you are going to do, you take it to your sewing machine and run a straight stitch around the waistline. Once you have done that, you use the opportunity to hem your skirt. I take my skirt to my overlock. I just overlock all the raw edges and I take it to my ironing board. I fold it along the overlocker raw edges and then I fold it again 2 centimeters. I will take it to my sewing machine and run a straight stitch all around. That means you are hemming your skirt. Once you have done that, you can use the opportunity to install your snap closure or buttonhole. I will come back here and show you the final look of my dress making. I have top stitched the waistline. This is how it is. I use the opportunity to make a 2 little bow at the waistline on both sides of the dress. This is the final look. It's beautiful, step-by-step tutorial, and I will turn the back of the dress so that you can see how that is. I've also installed my snap closure. You can also place your buttonhole at the center back of your dress. This is how the dress finally look. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with your friends and loved ones. Follow us on all social media platforms at Helloangel.design. Thank you all so much for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye.